What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode number 329 of the A2D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. Again, today's episode number 329 of the A2D From Addict to Disciple podcast is entitled The Game Is On. And as we start this episode, we're going back to Chenge Park and walking on the second trail in Chenge Park, and this trail is entitled The Game Is On. So this will be a walkabout, and we'll see what the signs have to say and what people wrote in the journals. Right at the beginning, as the welcome to this trail, the Game Is On trail, is a quote by Peter Chenge. And it says, "People don't resist change, they resist being changed." And it goes on to say, we've heard often in people in recovery and people in addiction say things like, if you are trying to change me, or if I even sense that you're trying to change me, my brain sees an opportunity for increased manipulation of you. So the game is on. So that's the game we're talking about on this trail. And this example talks about someone who had an enabler as a parent. And anytime they try to change them, they'd take it as a challenge and say, the game is on. Hope you enjoy this walk on the trail. Okay, guys, let's go down to the first sign, and it says, why do they always try to change you? Why don't they just accept you for yourself? And let's see what people wrote in the journal. First one said, "Sure, that's me. I've never been good enough. I've always fallen short. And it wasn't that my parents were perfectionists or anything. I was just never good enough, and there was always correction. There was always change the way you're doing that. And I knew that I'd always fall short. That was a burden my whole life growing up." Second guy says, "Yeah, my parents never even tried to understand me. They just called me rebellious all through my teenage years. And I didn't think I was. I was a good kid. I was sad a lot because I didn't know what was going on and changes were coming around me. And you know what? My parents never asked if I was happy, or never observed that I wasn't and asked, why aren't you happy, son? So they just never accepted me." Last guy writes in the journal, "Same for me. My parents were just like that last guy, and that made me rebellious. When my parents labeled me a rebel and said I was rebellious, I said, bring it on. You ain't seen nothing yet. You think I'm rebellious? Here's comes rebellious." Wow. Good stuff coming out right at the beginning of this trail. Let's go down to the second sign, and it says, "They always tried to fix you like you were broken." First guy wrote, "Wow, that is it for me. My parents always were trying to fix me, always trying to correct me. And I wanted to be able to just say, why don't you just love me? Is that too much to ask?" Second guy wrote, "Me too. And I wanted to tell my parents, hey, I'm not a car with a flat tire here. I'm your son, and I'm hurting inside. Do you care?" Next guy wrote, "Why do I have to change to please my parents? I'm in my late 30s now, and I'm still trying to please my parents. And I really think they're stuck and addicted on controlling me. And all this change they want me to make is to prove that they didn't make a mistake raising me and they can control me." Wow. Good stuff coming out, guys. Let's go down to the third sign. And it says, this is a quote from Godfather 3, the movie, about guys trying to get out of the mafia. And the quote says, "Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in." First guy writes in the journal, "Yeah, I can see how this relates to recovery and addiction, because a couple of times I've been to rehab before, and just when I thought I was out of addiction, I got pulled right back in." And my sponsor now in NA says, it's not the years, it's the mileage. And he explains that, yeah, this is good information if you're buying a used car. It's not how new or old it is, it's how many miles it's been driven. But he also says this is true in recovery. It's not how long you've been clean, it's how far along the journey you are. I think that's great advice. Second guy says, people are always trying to pull me back in. My cousins, my friends, my family, old girlfriends. But I let go of the life I planned on in addiction, and I'm trying to find a new one here. So I just wish people would stop trying to pull me back in. Next guy wrote, "Yeah, I may be wandering a bit in my recovery. And sometimes it looks like I'm going in circles, but I'm not. I know my destination. I've had lots of people try to pull me back in, but they couldn't get me back into using. I'm not going back there." Last guy writes in the journal, "I'm on the journey too, and I'm far down the road leading away from relapse. I'm so far down the road, if I turn around, I can't even see me using again. All I see when I try to look back there is death, and I want to live." Okay, we're coming up on the last sign in the park here, and it says, "How do you know you've changed? What has changed in you?" First guy writes in the journal, "Well, this is a good one because my coach just asked me that question. How do you know you've changed? Let's talk about what changed in you." And I was stumped at first. I was like, I'm clean and sober. And he said, "No, what's changed in you? Your attitudes and emotions." And so we talked about it. And what we settled on is I'm not as reactionary as I used to be. I used to fly off the handle at any little thing. And he pointed that out to me and said, we need to work to get your reaction time slower so that you think before you act. You think before you speak. So that's how I know I've changed. I think I've got slower reactions. Next guy wrote, "Yeah, I've got a sponsor in NA, and he said he's noticed me changing because I'm not waiting for him to contact me. I'm not isolating anymore. I'm actually calling him every day just to check in and say I'm doing well and see how he's doing in life." Next guy wrote, "Well, I know I've changed because I would say yes to everything just to please people. I was a people pleaser, a yes man, but I'm slower making commitments. I'm making smaller commitments, and I'm not making any commitments if I think I can't follow through on them. So that's how I know I've changed." Last guy writes, "For me, it's my coping skills. I am feeling less overwhelmed by my emotions. And I got to tell you that in the beginning of my recovery, my emotions overwhelmed me like crazy. I would just cry. I would just mope. I would get in depression because I hadn't dealt with my emotions for decades. But I've learned coping skills. I can handle life situations and circumstances, and they don't take me out, and they don't trigger me with cravings to use again." Okay, this is a great walk through Change Park on this trail of The Game Is On. And I want to thank all the listeners for listening today. And if you were saying that's me, if you were a guy who used to say the game is on and you're making changes, or you feel you need to make changes, I want to encourage you to join a group. find somebody to talk to, work with your support system. You can contact me at the link in this podcast or by email at davidfroma2d@gmail.com, or go to my website, www.from2d.org, and click on the contact page. Keep listening to future podcast episodes, and as always, stay safe and stay resilient.